So my name is Shawn Thompson, and I'm the Finance Director for Northern California SBDC Lead Center. And I wanted to go over the key concepts for the SBDC grant that just went out for the sub-award recipients in the last month, and go over the concepts related to financial compliance. So the guidance regarding the SBDC program that you need to follow for compliance is the program announcement is the first place you need to start. And that can be found at this link that's, this link that's highlighted right here that says www.sba.gov. And those are the instructions for the lead center to submit the proposal every year for the whole region. But within those instructions, which are about 70 pages, it also gives definitions and parameters for what's allowable in the contract. Then the next thing that happens is the lead center gets a notice of award, and the notice of award references terms and conditions. And that's this next internet link here. And in the terms and conditions, instead of sending hundreds of pages of documentation, they link it on the internet. And that is everything that is the master contract for the region. And then we take that information and condense it down for your sub-awards that go out to your hosts. And you need to follow your sub-award information, but also the master contract. So it's all of these things. Additionally, for all federal grants, you need to ensure that you're in compliance with 2 CFR 200 or the Uniform Guidance, which are cost principles, audit, and administrative requirements for federal awards. And then last and not least is Service Center host institutional policies and procedures. So if you're following all of those, then you should be in compliance. So we're going to go through and just some reminders for expenses. So federal expenses are only for goods and services provided or received during the program year, which the program year for this grant is January through December. These same rules apply for cash match and in-kind donation. And I would also say program income. And so that's which is our next topic. Program income means gross income earned by the recipient that is directly generated by a supported activity or earned as a result of the award. Program income must be used to further the objective of the SBDC program and cannot be used for other purposes. You can record program income in a separate account. Carryover of program income balances need to be from one year to the next. And you need to maintain control over program income accounts, and you need to keep documentation on program income sources and use. So this is the one fund or account that rolls over year to year. The federal money is just January through December. You get one award each calendar year, and then you start over again, and you need to be able to segregate that money. For program income, it stays with the SBDC program in general, but it continues going from calendar year 2018, and whatever your balance was at the end of December 2018, you carry that balance forward into 2019. And you do need to keep it separate from your cash match, your federal funds, and not have it commingled. So regarding matching funds must be equal to at least 100% of the federal grant, and that's the minimum amount. We appreciate when centers can do more matching, that there are some centers, the lead center being one of them, that is not always showing 100%. That's because our efforts a lot of times for the region director are focused on larger efforts in Sacramento, perhaps, for getting cost match for the entire region. So the TAPE money that came in this year, or the CIP money, that trying to increase match for the whole region, but not doing fundraising at local chambers, or smaller amounts of money that would be directly benefiting the lead center. Cost sharing or matching means the portion of the project costs not paid by federal funds. And the cost match is the combination of cash match, in kind, waived indirect costs, which as a combination equal the total match. I want to just stop there before I go on to time and effort reporting, which is a large portion of the expenses for the grant, and see if there's any questions. And please remember, you can unmute yourself if you have questions. So personnel and fringe is a large expense on the SBDC grants. And we're going to go over and ensure that you understand the reporting that's required. Total effort needs to be reported, and that's defined as whatever amount of time a person devotes to fulfilling his or her responsibilities. And that is, let's say that someone works for Humboldt State University in the case of the lead center, and they work part-time for the business department and they work part-time for the lead center. We have to show 100% of their job, even though it's not all related to the SBDC grant. We need to show what they do for 100% of their time. And so there's a lot of staff people that do split their time on the SBDC program and something else, and we need to be able to show that. All employees charged to the federal grants must maintain time and effort reporting. It does not matter what type of funding. Any employee funded with federal grants must document the time they spend working on the grant's objectives to demonstrate that the amount budgeted and claimed is accurate. Time and effort reporting under the SBDC program is a method of documenting the work time devoted to this federally sponsored grant, expressed as a percentage of professional activity devoted to the SBDC, and each SBDC recipient should develop a time and effort certification form, also known as an activity or effort certification form, if the host institution does not have one. Most host institutions should have a form because in most cases, the SBDC program is not the only federally funded program, and time and effort reporting is a requirement of all federally funded programs. So if you're in the situation that you're new to the SBDC program and you're thinking, I haven't ever had to do this before, please check with if it would be maybe your HR department, accounting department, a grants department, and see if a form already exists, because it should be the host's responsibility to ensure that they have a consistent HR form for you to report your activity and for other people to report their federal activity. The effort percentages on the activity effort certification form must equal 100%. The total of the individual effort categories cannot be greater than 100% for each activity report. We're going to look at some examples, and let me see if I can. So I'm going to switch and exit this. I'm hoping that everyone can see the effort certification form for HSU. Is that true? HSU uses if someone was to work for the state side and a grant. And so this is not what I fill out for my effort reporting because I only work for a grant, and that has a different form yet. But if someone was to work, let's say for the business department, they were the business department faculty, and they also did some work for the lead center, this would be the form they would fill out. So place for a name, department, NorCal SBDC, what term it is, estimated distribution of effort, and documented effort, cost share effort. And so you can see that they can put the university effort that's instructional time, for example, is 85%. And then the part that is grant funded sponsored programs is here, and they can put multiple projects. So they could put one project here. So maybe they would work for PTAC maybe, and then here they would work for SBDC. And right now we just have an SBDC one. And for SBDC, you could say, I'm working for the federal grant here, and then I'm working for a cost match grant and maybe some program income, and you could list that out and the different percentages that are charged. And then these are initials, so authorizing changes. So these would be where you would put who is the person that would be the supervisor that would be authorizing and the date. And then the person who did this work is listed here. The supervisor is listed here. And then there's a routing, kind of how it gets routed. So that's one example. And then let me give you another example. We'll look at one that I fill out, which I'm salaried. So get that up. Okay. So this is an HSU level of effort certification. So every twice a month, I would fill this out, put my name here. It would be Sean. There's an HSU ID number. And this is a form from last year, but you can pull down these pay periods so that I can't mess it up and put the wrong dates in. It's just I only have these limited options. And then I have these limited options about am I benefited or non-benefited? So I'm benefited. And then this is where I have more choices. So the project name. So this could be, if it for 2018, SBDC, let's say Northwest 2018. And then we have a project or fund number, which would be 50220 that I would put here. Our SBDC department number is 2095. And that I worked 50% and well, not 5,000%, or maybe I did work 5,000%. And then it would do calculations, I guess, if I put my salary there. And so then I could do SBDC Northeast because we had 2 different grants last year and put that information. And then this would go to payroll, and they would split my salary in half and charge it, half of it to the Northwest, half of it to the Northeast, because I'm the finance director for both of those regions last year. And then I would claim if I had 8 hours of sick time or 8 hours of vacation, I can claim that there. And then I'd put the date here. It has a calendar. And the person who can sign for me is Kristen. That's the only, she needs to be a 1-up. I can sign for other people in our department, but only Kristen can sign for me because she's my supervisor. I can't sign for myself. And then we would route it. And then I'll show you one that is for staff that are not salaried or not exempt. Okay, so it's somewhat similar, that employee name can list a project. So that could be, you know, SBDC Northwest 2018. The one thing that I don't like about just the HSU form is that you can only do one project number on here. So we literally have some people that they work 40 hours a week and they have to fill out 3 of these timesheets and make sure that they don't go over their 40 hours a week in splitting out their hours between 3 different grants. And that's not a great system in my mind. So then you put the hourly rate here and it'll calculate. So, I mean, if you just had like $20 an hour and benefited, and so you would have to break out that if you worked 7 hours and you had 1 hour of vacation and do that, and you might have to do that across several different grants, which is difficult. The employee would sign here, and then a supervisor would sign here. And it has to be Kristen or I in this case, because Kristen is the principal investigator. She's the director for the SBDC program, and I am a designee. So that's how it works in our world. And then I'll show you one more that's from Butte Glen, which I think is a good example. So let's see, try to switch the view here. You put your name here, the period covered. So if it was a 6-month period, perhaps, and then the department. So if it's SBDC, and then you would have, let's see if I can make this bigger here. Oh, geez. So then you would have, if the person is staff, if they're full-time, part-time, management full-time, and then you can just check one of these. And then you can put unrestricted assignments and the account string here, and you have room to do several of those. And then grant funded projects. So this would be SBDC where you could put that. And that's reimbursed time. So that would be for the federal, and then maybe any other ones that you're getting reimbursed for. And then cost match for the grant funded projects. And you list that here, and it should total 100%. The employee is going to sign it. And then a supervisor or the appropriate person, Sophie, you can maybe chime in and let me know if I'm explaining this correctly, would sign below, and then this would get processed. So this can look several different ways, but it still accomplishes the same general idea. So that's kind of all I had for today, and I will open it up to any questions that people have. All right, I wanted to kind of just go over, for anyone who's new, just the main cost categories of the federal, the cost match, program income, and ensuring that you understand that time and effort needs to be recorded appropriately. So if there aren't any questions, that we can be done.